you have these like warehouses that are just banging out like 150 BPM techno. It's not even techno. It's not even techno. Like I'm sorry. It's like trance, hardcore. It's everything in between, but they like to brand it techno. What is it with? I want to get your guys' opinions on this whole fashionable techno at this moment in time, and
that said it.
And just
spoke volumes.
It's so strange to me because I guess like it's weird. I wouldn't even class myself as a techno artist, and
no, not anymore.
Yeah, and
I'm not,
and I think, and I don't want to be to a certain extent because it's really interesting because like I had it this weekend, and this isn't going to come out on this weekend, so nobody will know. But I played a show, and the artist before me like started playing pretty hard, and he was like, I just want to play some techno just so it comes on. And I'm like, you do realize I don't play this techno. Like I don't play 135 techno. Like I play like 128 max. Like, so now I have to play at 130 and it's not going to sound right. But what's your thoughts on all of this like hard TikTok techno?
TikTok, that's a good one. I like the TikTok techno thing. That's what it should be called.
It's interesting because I've had a couple of experience recently coming on after some pretty popular DJs that play that stuff. And I just had to come, I was standing there before I went on and just like watching, and like the people are not even dancing.
Yeah.
For one. It's too fucking fast to dance too. They're just like, they're shaking their heads. I mean, but in a way they were enjoying it and responding. But I just, I was saying to myself, okay, there's no way I'm even going to try to follow this, so it's best to just like stop and reset the room, just I'm going to start over regardless. People that walk away and that are not there for me, I'm going to leave and, whatever, I'm just going to restart the room. I'm not a fan of it. It's not something, there's nothing in it that I connect to, musically. It is it has just no soul. It's just missing everything. It's just, this is my opinion, of it,
And what's the deal? What's the deal with like all the like really bad like remixes going on? Like I heard like so many, like I was on scrolling. I heard another remix of Pump Up the Jam. I'm like, yo, it like why? Like why? Like, why do that? Like, there's so many records to pull from.
It's obviously a trend.
It's also a business move. Like, I think it's really interesting, especially like, is Vic for you where you used to remix the big pop guys?
Yeah.
I think it's kind of coming back to a certain side of that, but in a very different way on a bootleg culture where it's not... Because the music is not music. This is me sounding like a massive dick talking about a whole genre, but because the music isn't musical, and because it's the same in the whole like tech house as well, in the generic tech house. It's because the music is not musical. There's nothing really creative behind it. There's no melody. There's no interesting bass lines. The drum patterns are not interesting. This is my opinion and my theory behind it, is that they have to find a sample that everybody knows to then make that record interesting. And whether that's a fucking Celine Dion sample, or whether that's Pump Up the Jam, or whether that's Kylie Minogue, or whether that's fucking Britney Spears, everybody that's going to raves now knows these records. And don't get me wrong, I've done it, but it's doing it in a tasteful way, and it's doing it in a way that is not tasteful at all.
I'll be honest, I think the reason why it's done so much is just because the game of production has gotten so much easier for anyone to just put anything over anything. Right? Like in the 90s, if you couldn't play keys or write your own bass line, you would hire a musician
Yeah.
to write those parts. And whether you had something in your head or they freestyled it, you paid someone to do that and they would get credits on those records, obviously, right?
Yeah.
But now you could literally download MIDI packs or anything that's just, accessible for these people. So you don't really need to know exactly what you're doing.
Mm.
But if you have a good idea, you could probably make it work. And that's why I feel like the genre has kind of gone to shit a little bit, is just because you have so many more producers that, didn't do this for 10 to 12 years before they actually surfaced. And now the music is dumbed down a little bit. And that's why you're getting remixes that say my milkshake brings all the boys to the yard. That's why you're getting that.
And your milkshake does bring all the boys to the yard.
Damn straight. But that's that's the truth. It's how hard
the thought process of this, like trying to pick out this like campy, cheesy vocal for reaction, it's
yeah. Well, you got to think now too, the kids that are 21 to 25 that are going out grew up with some of this stuff, like, so is it us just being like too old school? I don't know. I never liked any of those songs anyway, so it's like I don't want to go to Club Space and hear Fergie. I don't.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to hear something different.
Yeah.
Like, why? Like, we did that when we were teenagers at teen clubs. Is that also a problem? Like, there's not many things for teenagers to do anymore, so their first crack at going out is 18. That's also a thing. Is that the reason why music has gotten so corny?
Well, I think also when I had DJ Bone on the podcast, we spoke quite a lot about the culture of electronic music and the culture of techno, and it really resonated with me a lot. And he was like, techno isn't a music genre, it's a culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like something for me that we've not necessarily lost, it's just not there so much, is the culture of the underground scene.
Yeah.
Maybe it is. Maybe we're just a bunch of old dudes that aren't fully got our ears to the floor, but I feel like we would know a little bit more if it was.
No, you're 100% right. Even now I always ask around, like, what's going on in New York? Where's like the spot, what, like, other than someone's loft or penthouse, like, what's going on, and I'll get every now and then there's a good one.
Yeah.
There's not really much, and I'm like, damn, like the underground scene.
We would know about it if it was that good.
Yeah, exactly.
Really something happening that was that good. I'm not knocking, the underground stuff that is happening in Brooklyn and pockets of, of the area, but it's not like, it's not consistent. It's like there isn't a venue that like going back to regularly. It's just there's shit happening, but it's just random. It's very random. And it's hard to build a culture, with something that is not consistent, it's just.
Well, it's really hard to build a culture on headline culture.
Yeah. It became big business, that's what's leading right now, Brooklyn Mirage festivals, all these it's big business. It's like, these corporations are basically running this shit,
How does that change though? How do you, and I'm not saying that we want to revert back, because I think we're in a really amazing situation where like multiple artists and multiple people can earn very good money from the music industry, where previously it was a lot more of an elitist game, I think, and it was a harder industry to get involved. Now you can, the amazing thing about social media is you can be look at Mochak, right?
Yeah.
Like Mochak blew up on TikTok and Instagram, and look where he's at now. And whether you like his music or not, you can't take that away from him. That he's creating culture around the world. But how do you bring the underground and the culture back to like what it's about?
I would start like honestly, I think it starts with like the phones being in the club and like actually giving people the experience that a club should be, you know? Um, and like just stripping it back a little bit, um, I think could help. Like I loved playing Watergate in Berlin because it was just straight up like no phones are allowed. If you get caught with your cell phone out or, you know, taking a video, you're not allowed in. They used to do that at Output. Um, I think it was a great concept.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing at stereo as well. It's just,
Yeah.
it's the operators that, have to like enforce those things or just like, drive their concept and culture, the way they see it. Not easy. It's not easy for a lot of these guys to survive. I
Yeah.
remember talking to Nicholas Matar, about Output. Can you come on this? Wait, I'm sorry, babe. You guys. No, can you close the door? Sorry. God.
That's hysterical.
Don't get married, people. Don't get married.
Anyway.
Love it.
Anyway. Yeah, I just look at the example with stereo, and then I just remember having that conversation with Nicholas Matar, and you look at Output, and you look how well that room was operated, and and what he built there, and there was a culture there, and people loved that venue, and he was programming the shit out of it. Great lineups, great talent going through. But on the other end of it, he was struggling, because of Brooklyn Mirage and because of the festival culture, that has taken over. He's just like, I can't compete. I can't compete. He's like, these same DJs, that are getting these massive fees, playing to play the Mirage, are coming here expecting the same thing. He's like, there's no way I can survive in that way. So I think there's just like, it's a hard balance, as an operator to keep that going, and I guess that's why nothing is like, nothing lasts, nothing survives. It's like, you get a few years out of it and then it's gone. Going back to what you were saying earlier, why doesn't anything last?
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's interesting you say that. Maybe it's our fault. Maybe it's the DJ's fault because it's about, we all want to earn more money, right? We all want to put ourselves in a situation that we.
Well, I mean, there's exceptions, because I know for myself, there are a lot of rooms that I've been playing at for years that I don't get the fee that I get in other venues, and I play there because I know it's a special room, and I'll compromise on my fee because it's rewarding for me. As a DJ, I leave there and I'm like, fuck, that was so good, and I needed that. And I'm not making the money I was making, but I know what those operators are about, and I know that it's not easy for them to operate on the cover charges that they're getting through the door, and it's so it's like, I work with them, so it's not always about the big fee. Definitely not.
No, I think that's important, but I guess in this, when you're talking in a city of New York, for instance, you play Brooklyn Mirage, you get a certain amount of fee. You can only play in New York a certain amount of times a year, right?
Yeah.
And for a lot of artists, New York is a moneymaker, right? So it's like, okay, do you sacrifice a play in New York, which might be like you play twice a year in New York, so you make big money on one show and then you don't make as big money on another show, which makes sense. Right. I think for all three of us would make sense. Like, we want to do something really interesting for the culture, but I think for a lot of artists, it doesn't actually. That it's not about that. It's like, how much money can we fucking make, and is it going to be is it worth it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. But, some things you should do for the culture, because without the culture, you wouldn't be getting those big fees. The culture is what makes you and helps you build and grow. So
Yeah.
it's like, I think it's always good to like just give back and just do some cool shit. Like, it doesn't, like, for me, like, even last week I did a ground rule pop-up, and like, dude, I didn't care about spending money, making money, or anything. I just wanted to do it where like someone can come through, and whether they're a fan or a new artist or they've been a DJ for 30 years, they can come
Yeah.
and they could have some industry there, and you never know what can happen at a place like that. And that's what I want to kind of grow and build with, just like doing one here and there. And that to me is like my way of like, you know what, I can give back a little bit, or I can just have a good time with people that just want to have fun,
Yeah.
rather than like focusing on like the amount of shows I'm going to do in New York, or what's paying me. I think it's important to build that community a little bit.